The Rise and Fall of Leadership, Sam Bankman-Fried and Elon Musk. Up next on the Two Business Guys Mastermind. Enjoy. This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So, hey, Rob, we've got some interesting things on this episode because we're watching Sam Bankman-Fried defraud people of their money, allegedly. And then on the other end of this, we've got another smart guy. Now, this is Sam Bankman-Fried. He's a MIT graduate. We got Elon Musk that's going into what they say is hardcore cultural resets by telling employees, firing people, buying stuff, firing all the folks. And now people walking out of them. So you got, I remember in business school, we talked about laissez-faire leadership. And then you've got, the charismatic leadership. And then you had three of them. And then of course you had the totalitarian. Yep. So with your experiences, and I think this is very, very good for our entrepreneurs to hear, you've got the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world, very smart. You would think that everything is set up for this person to succeed, and yet they cheat, allegedly. And they cheat nonetheless. I pulled out all the books, man. I've got, I want to show you some of the books that I was reading just to kind of get my mind around what is happening with leadership. Now, you being, an officer, I don't know if they say former officer or once you're an officer, you're always an officer. I don't know how they say that.
Once a Marine, always a Marine, but I was a former Marine Corps officer on active duty. We could go there.
Yeah. So in an environment where you can't have the questioning of leadership if you're in a battlefield situation, right? You can't take time to say, and this is why we're doing this, right? This is the mission. This is what we have to do. So now you have the Elon Musks of the world, right? That are saying, look, we need to do a cultural reset here. That company, man, is teetering. It could literally, you could see $44 billion lost. Whereas one guy is doing it by way of, I think we can save the company by doing something interesting, but we got to have people on board. And people are going, I'm out of here. I don't want to work that hard. I'm not going to work for you. I'm not going to, whatever it is. And then you've got another person over here with Sam Bankman-Fried just frauding. And now it's coming out to saying all the stuff that he was doing to curry favor. Here's one quote. I'm going to read this quote, man, before you jump in.
I got you.
30 years old, right? MIT graduate. Parents are ethics professors, right? And he says, I was on the cover of every magazine in FTX. FTX is his organization. And then we got Alameda Research, where, he was sending money to and just became a bad deal. Was the darling of Silicon Valley. As a result, we got overconfident and careless. Now, he's also trying to throw woman he's supposedly in a relationship with or
one of the nine,
whatever it is, trying to throw her under the bus, saying, no, it was her fault. She lost all your money. I was just trying to cover its losses. Bro, what we're hearing here are, in my opinion, two extremes on leadership. Please weigh in. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with leadership.
Right. So one of the things that's interesting when you look at this, because there are different styles of leadership. And one of the questions that a lot of people try to look at what people are doing instead of how well their results match to their intentions and expectations. Right. And leadership is about galvanizing a group of people to get to a particular result that was thought about, or there was a vision that was not a reality, right? It's the ability to see something that is not currently in existence and to galvanize and connect a group of people to move towards that thing, to actually bring it into existence. So one of the most important things I think people have to pay attention to is, what is the connection between what was intended and what actually transpires? And so when you look at these two different things, the Sam Bankman-Fried thing is really interesting because, like you said, his parents are ethics professors. He's really in this laissez-faire style. Like he's in a, from what I heard, and I will disclaim, I haven't done a whole bunch of research on this. I've listened to a couple of podcasts of other people talking about it. So what I've heard is that he's living in this polyamorous relationship with a bunch of different people down in the Bahamas, and that I think he was a billionaire by the time he was 27, 28 years old. Overconfidence hit, all the rest of that, but also there is this feeling. There's a lot of people to talk about anarchy and laissez-faire and just no rules and all the rest of those types of things. And there's this feeling that, what's the point of rules, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was younger, I thought a lot about this as well. One of the reasons why I went to law school was to understand how systems are set up. How does the rule of law come to be? And what you learn is that it's the history, right? A lot of people think that people just make up laws and that's how things work. That's not how it actually works. The system of laws that we have, right? There's common law, and then there's actually the laws that get created. The system of laws that we have are the learnings of generations of people over time. And it's not just tradition, as many people like to reduce it to. It's actually deduced wisdom over time. What happens is every generation questions these things and says, is this still beneficial? Is this still useful? And for the things that are beneficial, still useful, then we continue moving forward with it. For the things that aren't, then we change it and we move it. That's the process, right? Macro. But there's a lot of people that feel like rules are just power trips and rules are just there to impose, people's wills on each other and all the rest of that. And so what you get is you get this place where everything is relative. And when everything is relative, here's the problem that you run into. Everybody, right, was created with an equal opinion. And if it's relative, then you don't get to tell me what's right or what's wrong. I get to tell me what's right or what's wrong, until I run into the reality that in order for us to work together, we have to create an artificial right, which is what we agreed to before we started. Because one of us is going to change what we think. But how are we going to hold ourselves accountable later on, right? Because in this whole ethicsless, ruleless world, Sam Bankman-Fried didn't do nothing wrong. Right? They was doing exactly what they was trying to do. Yeah, so we lost some money. We did, but who cares? Like, I'm still a good person. Is the ethicsless world. But for the people that lost money, they're like, no, you ain't a good person to me. Right. You might be a good person to your mama. You might be a good person to your daddy, but to me, we got some problems, right? And so that's that one side of leadership, right? That's that one side of leadership. It's not really leadership, right? It's kind of it's the. I would argue it's the antithesis of leadership. It's not, I'm going to lead this group and therefore take responsibility for this group getting to the destination it's supposed to get to. It's, I'm going to be part of the group and a member. And if we get there, great, we all win, but I'm not going to take any of the responsibility for us getting there, right? You see, and in the space where things are going wrong, you see what he's doing. He's passing the buck to everybody else on his team. Now, I don't know the guy. I don't know anything about him other than what I'm seeing right now, but you can start to see how people behave when you see real leaders when things are not going well, right? Everybody can be a great leader when things are going properly, right? Because that's just taking the sunshine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The
and
mark of it.
Investing in stuff and
exactly.
Oh my God. And now he's talking about that, Rob, not
right.
to
exactly.
interrupt that line of thought. He's talking about, they just let me do this. And they put a value on this. That's why I was investing. He's basically saying this is why I was sending money.
He's basically saying it's y'all fault. He's saying I'm a good person
Incredible.
And y'all misled me, and therefore my mistakes are y'all fault. If y'all wouldn't have did what y'all did, I wouldn't have did what I did, and then I wouldn't have messed up.
It's and what I have not heard, and this is really funny, right? I remember and I was a young guy, but I remember when Michael Milken went to prison, junk bond king. Right. I remember when that dude went to prison, and basically, if you think about, I have not seen a direct comparison, and I wonder if it's because a lot of people don't remember that, or they're, the people that are writing these things are younger, or if the algorithms haven't picked up on it, if they've got the AI writing these articles, because it was the same concept. If I think about, they were creating money.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different
companies.
Yeah, there's been a lot of different things that are done. Like Bernie Madoff was the same type of Ponzi scheme. The girl Elizabeth Olsen, I think, is the one, Theranos, right? Just recently.
Elizabeth Holmes,
Holmes. Yeah, she got 11 years, and it was the same idea, right? She's doing Elizabeth Olsen is the girl that's in is the actress that's in the Marvel Doctor Strange. She plays the witch. That's why I was like, that's not the right name. Thank you for correcting that. Right. But what's her name? But there are people that have been doing this, right? The grift, if you would. And so I think what happens is so many times we think that it's because people are bad people. And it's like, nah, like you see instant after instant where you see good people who do the wrong thing. And one of the reasons why they do the wrong thing is because they get into an echo chamber where they can't hear anybody telling them, hey, what you're doing doesn't make any sense. They get so caught up in being the visionary and knowing everything and nobody being able to tell them anything because you just can't see what I'm seeing. And it's like, got it. Right. But they become a prisoner of their own success. Now, I think one of the problems that so many people in society and for our business people that are listening, one of the things you always have to look at is when you look at somebody else and you see their mistake and you look at them and say, I can never make that mistake because I'm not like that. That is the beginning of your downfall, because that is hubris rearing its ugly head. And when you can't see that the same seeds of making these types of mistakes lie in you, right?
Yeah,
then you also then can't avoid it the way that you would need to avoid it. You can't be wary, you can't be circumspect, you can't be, disciplined enough to understand that that's the key. I always talk to everybody, in my inner circle, my biggest fear is hubris, right? My biggest thing is thinking, the thing that I try to watch out for the most is thinking that I know more. Because the problem that you run into when you're constantly successful, you generally run into spaces where you say stuff and people go, wow, yeah, that's really right. Like most of the time you experience one of two things, either being in a room and people being blown away by what you're saying, or being in a room with people who can't understand what you're saying. And therefore, that like they just don't get it, but it's not because what you're saying is wrong. You know that you vetted it, right? Like you've had these things where you're regurgitating what you've seen in 15 different books by 15 different people who have done exactly what you've done. So you know it works, right? And you see this person over here who's against it, but they don't have what, like it's the person in business parlance, right? It's the person that ain't never built a business trying to tell you how to run a business, right? Like that type of thing. So you run into these two spaces, which makes it so that your experience is I'm normally right, regardless of what people are saying. But then there are these other experiences that you have where people are telling you something or people are disagreeing with you or whatever the case may be. And in that, you have to find the seed of how can I better make this work? How can I be better? Right. Even in those people that don't know what they're talking about and are critiquing you.
That makes me curious.
Right. And what I always try to remember is to the point of curiosity, what I always try to look at is why can't I get them to see it? Mm-hmm. Right. And instead of making it a character flaw on them and, well, you just blah, 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 that's why you don't get it. I put it upon myself. I take upon myself the responsibility to leave that conversation and say, how can I be better at getting them to see it? Because if I'm a visionary and I'm a leader, my superpower has to be getting people who don't see it originally to be able to see it and move towards it.
So why can't, let's talk a little bit about what Elon Musk, there's something that he's doing, man, that, I don't know. I'm kind of straddling the fence. I believe in hard work, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Fired for mocking him, right? This is his cultural reset.
Yeah.
He wanted people to respond with a yes on a Google form. Are you in for Twitter 2.0? Respond. Mm-hmm. If not, we consider you fired.
Yeah.
Right. He says it's going to be long hours and high intensity.
Yep.
Right. And then I read another article where he says, of his work habits, he says, I torture myself.
Yep.
So I'm not sure you're going to ever get people to the point where they believe they should torture themselves too.
I disagree.
Right? Now I'm saying get to the point where they torture themselves.
I disagree. And I disagree speaking as a Marine Corps officer. Right.
So you will be able to convince people they need to torture themselves too.
Right. Well, the whole thing about it is when we use the word torture, right? Like you got to understand it. He's being metaphorical. Like he did. He says, no. I'm saying he's being metaphorical. Exactly. He's being metaphorical. He's not saying I really torture myself. Like I put myself on the rack and I put myself through intense pain for no purpose. What he's saying is I go through extreme discomfort to get to this goal, right? And the reason I said I pushed
this,
back,
but you argue with me on that before. I'm like, look, you go all in, super intense, and you're like, I'm not doing it.
Exactly. But be clear. Remember what I told you is I'm not doing that because I've done it already. Yeah. And I know what it gets me and what it's going to get me. We were just talking about this before we came on camera. What it's going to get me isn't worth going through it. It's not that I can't go through it. Like I said, I've been a Marine Corps officer. I've run a marathon. I've done a whole bunch of stuff to my body. I've done a whole bunch of stuff mentally, right? In getting degrees and doing all the rest of that type of stuff. I've put myself through those paces such that I know that I can. It's not a question of can I. Some people are afraid to do it because they don't know if they can.
They don't know if they have it. Yeah.
Right. And so those are the people that will make up reasons that you shouldn't have to do that. Notice that I never told you that you shouldn't have to. What I said is I don't want to. I understand very well that it is one of the pathways to uber success to give away 10 years of your life to focusing on one single solitary thing. And you can become a billionaire. Right. I get it. I'm not willing to do that. And I'm comfortable not being willing to make that sacrifice. I think to your point, there's a lot of people that are judging Elon Musk who are saying, well, he shouldn't be creating a culture like that. And my argument to that is, right, if we're talking about from a general leadership standpoint, leading the most people, getting the best out of people, being the type of leader that is known for being a good leader, then yes, I would agree with you. But all leaders aren't concerned about being good leaders or being great leaders, right? Because a good leader can get a whole bunch of stuff done. They don't got to be great. Like this is one of those things of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. What Elon Musk is doing is he's employing a number of, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that what he's doing is right, but I want to make the argument so that everybody understands that it's not black and white. It's not like he's right or wrong, right? What he's doing is he's saying, this is the culture that I'm creating. Mm-hmm. If you like this culture, you're gonna enjoy being here. If you don't like this culture, I'm letting you know on the front end so you can get going.
Right. So again, we can respect that. Right.
That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, you're going, and then there's two schools of thoughts. On one, I'm like, man, I know this works.
Yeah.
Then on the other hand, you're going, yeah, I know this is gonna crush some people's souls.
And the key question that you have to ask yourself, and then this is where the entitlement question comes in. This is where all the rest of the type of stuff comes to play, right? And I like from a macro political perspective, this goes into the conversation about socialism, capitalism, all the rest of the type of stuff, right? Like so many people are wondering who should have the power and the control, and they treat it as if Elon Musk has all the control, but that's not the case. Elon Musk has the control of the people that decide to continue rocking with him. And for everybody that said, nope, I'm not saying yes, everybody that said, nope, I'm not working for this guy, they went and got another job somewhere else. The job market for coders and programmers, et cetera, is amazing. They're going to be fine, number one. But number two, they have the right to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
They also have the right to go get $44 billion and buy the company from him.
Yeah.
They have the right to do exactly what he did. Now, whether or not they have the capacity or the ability to, I'm not a fan of punishing him because he has the capacity to do something because he was willing to live like you weren't willing to live to get what you weren't willing to get.
Exactly. Right. That's why pull your boots up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, is in me is saying, yay. Right. And then I'm not betting against that guy. Right. Yeah. The only thing I can see is he gets a coronary and drops over and it's just a bad deal. Right. 120-hour day. Like he says, all I do is work and sleep.
Yeah, and make kids. He got 10. He do something else.
Work and sleep. But my point is that, well, yes, while he's sleeping, maybe he's doing some other kind of work, right? But my point here is that he's chosen a way to go. Mm-hmm. Right now. Most of us won't make that kind of commitment, right? But we have seen time and time again that results come from that.
That's the whole key.
So
and people try to make it
results
a moral
come from that,
right? And people try to make it a moral imperative. Like the problem that I have is not that you say I don't like that. Like I told you, I won't do that for me. right? There's certain, even the amount of work that we do, right? Like I'm not a billionaire, I'm not even a millionaire, right? But the fact that I have a multi six-figure business,
Say you're a thousandaire.
right? I'm pretty good thousandaire, right? Like, and the fact that we built, multi six-figure businesses, the work that we put in, the things that we do, the things that we're willing to do in order to make that happen, the studying, the reading, the consistency, right? Just doing a podcast.
Yeah. I get
week,
people
right?
looking at me weirdly too.
Exactly,
like,
right?
You're doing all that? Like, yeah. And then when? I says, one whole day, one whole concentrate.
Right.
So I develop a system around some of these things. I learn something, I use it by the end of the day.
Exactly. And so there's some people that will look at that and say, I don't want to do that. And I feel like that's the beauty of our system that says you can live how you want to live and I can live how I want to live. Where it becomes a problem is when people begin to get moralistic with it, when they start to do the shoulds, when they start to do the you shouldn't be able to do that, or you shouldn't do that, or that's wrong, right? It's wrong for you. But if I'm living my life and I'm enjoying what I have, number one, who are you to tell me that what I'm doing is wrong for me? Right? Have you asked me any questions? Have you done any in-depth conversations with me? Do you know me to make that type of a judgment? I think that's the thing that a lot of people are struggling with. If you've ever watched Elon Musk's interviews, if you ever read books about any of this stuff, like, you understand it. What he's doing is directly in line with what he wants. Now, it might not be what you want, and that's perfectly fine. But is what he's doing hurting you? And if it is, tell me how, right? Like people are like, he bought Twitter and now Twitter is different. Right. But you act like Elon Musk, the only person that was involved in him buying Twitter. Like, you need to be mad at Jack Dorsey. You need to be mad at the board of directors. You need to be mad at everybody saying, yeah, we'll sell to Elon Musk. But, they're not, nobody's talking about the people that were part of this, right? You need to be mad at yourself for staying at Twitter when you knew that he was going to buy Twitter and not moving before.
And if you look at the results, right? When we start thinking about, okay, so what is the result? Because I remember Al Chainsaw, what was his last name? Oh, I can't think of his last name, but he was that guy, comes into a company, he buzzsaws all these people, he fires people, and it was working for every company he went into. Then he bought, I think it was Gillette or something, and it didn't work. And they bounced that dude out on his ear, because then they says, you're driving people. So it works. Dunlap, Al Chainsaw Dunlap, right back in the day. And I remember, again, I'm looking at that and I'm going, I like this kind of style of leadership where you go in and you says, we're going to work our face off. Like Gary Vee says, we're going to work our face off and we're going to we're going to do what's that saying? Do what other people won't.
So you can
do for a short time what other people won't. So you can do for your lifetime what other people can't. I used to take that to heart. Until I got married, right? And before I got married, that's what I would do. Whether that meant pitching a tent, living in a neighborhood that wasn't all that savory, because I wanted to live cheaply. I wanted to live for $150 a month or whatever it is. So I built up a little real estate portfolio, and then one day sold the portfolio and could live off of that for a little while. That was the do what other people won't do. Going to the job, working 60, 70 hours a week, paying myself $1.50 so I get a pop, some salty something or another, because I realized if I had some salt in my body, but all these different things that people wouldn't do. And I used to get teased about that. Right. And they used to be like, man, why are you driving these hoopties?
Of course.
Right. And it's like, because I want to be able to live whatever way. And I used to get you can't take it with you and all that. I says, I'm not trying to take it with me.
I want to live and enjoy it
in a position where I can give it away.
Right.
I can get rich and then live richly, or give it away or whatever while people are here.
Right.
Enjoy
and a lot of
those
people don't understand delayed gratification, right? Like, and
that's it in a nutshell. Delayed gratification.
And even with the Elon Musk thing, right? Like, the key is what he's saying is like, I have a vision for where this company is going to go. And it's not where this company was going. It's kind of like, if a group of people were on a bus and they were going to New York City, right? And then you stop and the bus driver switches out and a guy makes an announcement on the bus and he says, hey, y'all, I know we were going to New York City, but now we're going to Dallas, Texas. I know that y'all thought New York was good, and I completely understand that, but I think that the best place for this bus to go is Austin, Texas. there's better weather, all the rest of the type of stuff, whatever the reasons are that he thinks that going to Austin, Texas is better or Dallas, Texas is better. And so he says, if you want to go to New York still, be my guest. There's another bus coming. You can jump on that bus. But if you want to go to Dallas, here's the way that we're traveling. Some of the things that we're doing, all the rest of that type of stuff, like everything is going to change. But if you decide to stay on this bus, right, realize that you're making a decision for everything to change. Now, would I have done it the way Elon Musk did it? No. But I also have to be able to admit that I'm not a billionaire. And so maybe there's some things that he thinks about. There's some ways that he sees the world that I don't comprehend right now. Right. And maybe he's not considering and caring about certain things the way that I care about certain things. Now, I get the argument that we say in a society like ours, what do we want? But I challenge the people who are saying that he's doing it wrong. Tell me how to get his result and do it right. Because what a lot of people want to do is try to tell you the result that you want is wrong.
Man, I tell you, I'm reading this book, Leadership on the Line. This one right here, Leadership on the Line, is by Ronald A. Heifetz and Marty Linsky, right? HBS guys. And here's a line that I got. It says, staying alive. Now think about Elon in this. Staying alive through the dangers of leading, right? That was the byline. And then it says, holding steady in the heat of action is an essential skill for staying alive and keeping people focused on the work. Then it says, the pressure on you may be almost unbearable, causing you doubt to doubt both your capacities and your direction. If you waver or act prematurely, your initiative can be lost in an instant.
Yep.
Now this is hardcore guy that's saying, I have a vision. Don't bet against me. All right. And he's now up against the pressure of trying to create an organization in Twitter, which I'm not sure if it'll work. I just don't know, because
nobody is. That's the whole point.
There's the culture that we live in. I'm just not sure it'll work, right?
No, it makes perfect sense.
He's creating some new kind of company.
It makes perfect sense, but I guess I push back to nobody's ever sure that anything's gonna work. That's the whole point about the future, right? Like a lot of times we like, and not, I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of people will make the argument that I can tell you not to do something because I'm certain about the outcome. And the very fact that you make that argument tells me that I shouldn't listen to you. Because the fact that you can be certain about an outcome in the future is a delusional belief, right? Like
it drives me nuts when entrepreneurs want certainty.
Exactly. Right now, what I can say is that I feel I feel pretty good that the probabilities are good, right? Or I'm certain that the probabilities are in better favor, right? Like there's certain things that you can be certain about, quote unquote, right? Which are the data right now. So the data right now says that it's more likely to be this than that. But more likely does not mean 100% accuracy. More likely means unless something catastrophic happens, this is what's going to happen. And guess what? Catastrophic stuff happens all the time, right?
And it's called Black Swan. 1,200 people walked off.
Exactly.
Now he's 7,500 employees. I think that's contractors in both, right?
Yeah.
Fired half of them. Boom. Now you're down to 3,500.
3,500, right? 3,700, right?
Right. And then 1,200 more just walk off.
Right. Now, but here's the thing that so many people look at. When you look at those numbers, right? 1,200 people
walked
off. But pause.
Controls.
1,200. First of all, if he fired,
you don't have the robots yet.
He fired 3,700 people because he felt like it was already bloated. So that's key point number one.
Sure.
So you don't need somebody to monitor all of the controls. Number one. Number two, 1,200 people walking off is a third of the workforce that was left, right? But that means 2/3 stayed, which means that when you go and start doing your recruiting, guess what you can have as your avatar for who you're bringing in to replace those 1,200 people that just left? The 2/3 of people that just stayed. So even when people are like,
mind working their face off.
Exactly, right? Even when people look at it, when you look at the data says that the majority of people that Elon wanted to work with him.
Yeah, in his other company, it says the top places to go if you're an engineer. Guess what? I think the top 2 or 3 were Elon Musk ran companies.
Exactly. Right. So the key is he understands the audience that he wants. What happens is people get mad because they're not part of that audience. Right. In the Marine Corps, we are intentionally selective. It is the few, the proud, the Marines, for a reason. Right. It
The
gets
few,
enmity.
the proud. Y'all see that?
Right. Yeah. Well, we don't say it.
It's
You know,
not all
everybody else
y'all.
says it about us. Right. And at the end of the day, it's a significant majority of us, such that here's the thing to think about. Like, this is a fact that blows people's minds sometimes, right? If you look at our documents that Congress has written, the Army and the Navy are necessary components of the military defense apparatus. The Air Force, necessary, as in enshrined into law, they will exist. You know what's not enshrined into law that it will exist? The Marine Corps. From 1775, before the Army, before the Navy, before RSA, from 1775 until today, right? Now there's Space Force, which I think is enshrined in as a part of the Air Force as well. But from 1775 until today, the Marine Corps has to get reauthorized every time. It's like every 4 years or something like that. They wind up having to say, yes, we want a branch. Yes, we want a Marine Corps. Yes, we want a Marine Corps. So the United States does not have to have a Marine Corps. The United States wants a Marine Corps. Right.
That's good. So where do you want to work?
And the key thing about it is this:
you don't
say whatever you want about Elon Musk. People clamor to work for him and to invest in him, and he makes people money, and he makes better things that people want to buy.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's awesome? Does that mean he's great? No, he's human. Everybody is flawed. But so many people like to look at it, like you said, you know, they don't look at the numbers and say, wait a minute. He had 3,700 people, 2,500 stayed, 1,200 left. Okay, so when he asked 3,700 people, do y'all want to work with me? A third of them said, nah, bro, we good. But if you could make 2 out of 3 on any type of offers that you make.
Oh, man.
What type of successful business are you running when 2 out of 3 of the people that you asked to buy say, yep?
It's just so funny watching this thing. You know, it reminds me also of when the .com era came, because I was invested in some stuff, man, during that time, and it blew up. Right. And I was like, man, I'm down 50% across portfolio. and you know, it was so bad. But and of course, why I stopped managing my own money is because I didn't have the stomach for it. Right. When it goes down that much, I'm saying
sell everything.
I'm out. I'm out. Versus like right now, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be finding those companies. I'll be following Kathy Wood even deeper, and I'll be investing in the stuff she's investing and looking at what are the strong cryptos and which are the strong, because it reminds me so much of that era, whoever's left, right? And you had been hearing it was coming, that a lot of them are going to go to zero. And then from that, like a lot of the stuff, or what starts, they'll be starting with the idea that, well, we got to be extremely transparent given the nature of where people are at. And then we got to kind of ignore a little bit of what Charlie Munger says. I told you, right? But when you start thinking about use case, that's all I kept thinking about, the underlying use case of, whether it's blockchain technology, underlying use case of, and get to
be
that.
clear, like even with Charlie Munger, like I want to push really quick, because like, first of all, again, Charlie Munger, one of the richest investors in history of the world, right? Like, so obviously he knows a little bit what he's talking about. And if you listen to what he's talking about, right? Here's the interesting thing. Everything he said was true. Everything he said has come to pass. Everything that he talked about crypto and blah, blah, blah. And now here's the thing. And this is what so many people, you got to go back and study markets, right? Again, if you look at vehicle manufacturers, if you look at turn of the century, turn of 20th century, there were thousands of car manufacturers. And then the market collapsed and they all went under, and a couple emerged, right? You had Ford, you had Dodge, you had GM, which bought up like 13 different car manufacturers in the area, right? And then out in Germany, you had, you know, BMW and Mercedes and Chrysler or Daimler Corporation. And then in Japan, after World War II, they started making, right, because Honda and everything was doing motorcycles and they weren't really into cars. So you had Honda and Nissan and Toyota. But when the technology first started, everybody thought we can make this work, but there wasn't a market yet. The market had to be built. And with industrialization, with there were certain things that didn't exist when everybody was making cars by hand that didn't exist for the market. So all those people that failed didn't fail because they were bad. They failed because they were early. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, there are a number of things that they're figuring out with crypto right now about how to make the market for crypto. There are a number of things that they said that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. All of the people that were bullish on crypto were like, it won't matter. It won't matter. It won't. And people were like, well, there's this red flag and this red flag and this red flag and this red flag and this red. Now, that won't matter. We're going to win. We're going to win. If you look at every new market, it runs just like that. The internet was the same thing. Right? And the dot-coms, the same thing. Right? And there were people that said, there were people that were like, well, how are you going to, cover traffic? How are you going to do transactions? How are you going to do e-commerce? Right? Because that was the hard thing with the internet during the 90s bubble burst, is that there were a lot of companies that were trying to crack the code, but nobody had it until PayPal, right? You think about it, PayPal and Amazon was a bit player, but when PayPal and all of these abilities to do payments, to do the back end of business easily and succinctly, that's when the boom happened, right?
And see who the people that were a part of PayPal, the PayPal mafia.
Exactly.
All of them are still going really well.
Right.
All of them are super duper rich.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Exactly. And so when you look at these things, right, it's always important. What I'm saying about what Charlie Munger was saying, if you listen to the critiques that him and Warren Buffett will make about any business, they will say, I don't see a pathway to this right now. And therefore I don't buy, or I don't understand this enough to see profitability, and therefore I don't buy. That doesn't mean it'll never be profitable. That doesn't even mean it'll never work. It means I know what to look for and I don't see those things. They may get those things eventually, and then I may buy, but right now is not the time to buy. I think what you're going to see in crypto is these failures that are happening, all this cascading stuff, because you see, I mean, it happens if you go back and look throughout history. I mean, literally every depression, every cycle, there's a new thing that pops out. Like you see it, and it's crazy. The credit default swaps with mortgages, like if you go back through, you'll see these things. And what happens is there's a new technology that everybody thinks is a panacea. They jump on the wave, and then all of the holes in the boat show up, the boat sinks. But there were some people that was in parts of the boat that were really, really well crafted. They float, and then they build boats based off of those best principles, and that becomes the new market.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen now. I really love the idea that we got a 98-year-old guy saying, "Yeah, I told you so." Not literally like that, but and then you got the 30-year-old guy that's going to go to prison for like a million years. And I want a quote by Peter F. Drucker from a 1995 book, "Managing in the Time of Great Change." Right. So this is what he said. He said that people, especially the young, think they want all the freedom they can get, but it is very demanding, very difficult to think through who you are and what you do best. Right. In helping people to learn to be responsible, our education system is more and more counterproductive.
This is true.
I take this saying and I ask myself, these are smart people coming out of top universities doing some bad things.
Yeah, because they're not universities nowadays. And this is as a former teacher, as somebody with 4 degrees, I spent a lot of time in university. I spent a lot of time in the educational space. I love teachers. Let me say that first. I think teachers are some of the most awesome people in the world, have hearts of gold because they want to pour into the next generation. They want to help. That has nothing to do with how I feel about pedagogy, which is how teachers teach. And
they have to teach.
Right. And just the way that teaching is taught and what people are taught to do. And I think that has a lot more to do with consensus building and this idea of non-confrontation and non-conflict, right? You see in schools, the whole idea of allowing fights or conflict in any way, right? Like kids are getting suspended. There's this idea of compliance and conformity that I think is very detrimental, because what schools are not teaching people how to do is how to think. and how to think through these decisions. There, you said something earlier, and I wrote it down, and I wanted to circle back to it in this kind of perfect segue. You talked about how on the battlefield, in military situations, people can't ask why. And
I'm a non-military person, y'all.
Right.
So.
And this is the key. I wanted to point it out, because most people think that. Most people think that the term immediate obedience to orders means that you don't get to question why. Right. But that's because you don't know the system that immediate obedience to orders lives in. So what every officer is taught, and what everybody who's in charge, non-commissioned officer, commissioned officer, is taught, is an orders process whereby there's one thing in that orders process that is the most important thing, even more important than the actual mission and the actual tasks that you give people. And that's called commander's intent. It is the thing that is imperative that you give to your troops so that you can give them decentralized commands, so that you can push decision making down to the lowest level. And what commander's intent is it's the purpose behind an action and the desired end state of the action. So you define what good looks like, and you tell them why you're doing it. That's the most important part of an order, which allows them to then take an order, understanding what we're trying to accomplish. In civilian talk, you paint the vision so that people are bought into the vision. And by doing so, you earn immediate obedience to orders.
That's it. That's the show, y'all. Elon, I wish you well, but do what Rob just said. Sam, sorry, bro. I think you're going down. I think he's going down. So
yeah.
That's it.
All right, brother, man.